The roar of American industry is fading in Michigan. For over a century, Ford's factories in cities like Wayne stood as symbols of U.S. manufacturing dominance. But now, the unthinkable is happening. Ford is pulling out. In a stunning announcement, the automaker revealed plans to shift production of its Focus and C-Max models, along with a significant portion of its electric vehicle operations overseas. The decision has ignited a firestorm, pitting corporate survival against national loyalty and exposing the harsh realities of a globalized economy. Ford's move isn't impulsive. It's a desperate shift in response to years of mounting pressure. At the core of the issue lies a perfect storm of skyrocketing U.S. production costs, largely fueled by Trump-era tariffs on essential materials like steel, aluminum, and lithium. These policies, originally designed to protect American jobs, ended up backfiring for manufacturers. Ford found itself paying inflated prices for materials that global competitors sourced far more cheaply. Meanwhile, supply chain disruptions, from pandemic delays to trade wars, left factories idle and profits shrinking. But the real wake-up call came from Tesla. While Ford struggled under the weight of legacy costs and an outdated dealership model, Elon Musk's vertically integrated empire perfected lean, globalized EV production. Tesla's ability to manufacture vehicles faster, cheaper, and with cutting-edge technology forced Ford into a corner. "We're not just competing with a company anymore," admitted one Ford executive. "We're competing with an entire system." The backlash was immediate. Donald Trump, whose America First agenda centered on revitalizing U.S. manufacturing, saw Ford's decision as a direct challenge to his vision. Ford's decision was branded as treason. At a raucous rally, Trump thundered, "They're spitting on the workers who built them." His playbook was predictable: threats of punitive tariffs, canceled government contracts, and mobilizing his base for boycotts. Yet Ford didn't flinch. Behind closed doors, executives had run the numbers, and the conclusion was clear. Staying in the U.S. meant stagnation. EVs rely on lithium-ion batteries, and 80% of the world's lithium is processed in China. Tariffs had made domestic battery production financially unviable, while competitors like Tesla sidestepped the issue by sourcing globally. Ford's choice was stark: adapt or perish. The human cost was undeniable. Towns like Wayne, where generations had relied on auto industry paychecks, now faced economic devastation. Auto unions erupted, accusing the company of betraying loyals. Workers in favor of shareholder profits. But Ford's counter-argument was brutally pragmatic. Without this move, there might be no Ford, and no jobs at all in a decade. "Would you rather lose 2,000 jobs now or 20,000 later?" challenged CEO Jim Farley. The company insisted it was still investing in US-based R&D and high-tech manufacturing. But the message was clear: the era of mass assembly line jobs was ending. Future factories would be automated, demanding software engineers over wrench turners. Ford's decision signaled a seismic shift in corporate power dynamics. Once upon a time, governments dictated terms to industry giants. But now, facing existential threats, companies like Ford were rewriting the rules. By offshoring, they were calling Trump's bluff. Could politicians truly reverse globalization? The answer would redefine the U.S. economy. If Ford thrived overseas, rivals like GM and Stellantis would follow, leaving Trump's vision of a manufacturing revival in shambles. But if the White House cracked down, it risked alienating businesses and accelerating America's decline in the EV race. Ford's move was never just about cutting costs. It was the opening salvo in a much larger war over the future of the auto industry. As the dust settled on the initial political firestorm, the real battle lines came into focus. This wasn't just a fight between Ford and the U.S. government, or even between Detroit and Silicon Valley. It was a fundamental clash over who would control the next era of transportation and whether a legacy automaker could outmaneuver tech disruptors, geopolitical forces, and its own obsolescence. The stakes were existential, and Ford's leadership knew they weren't just fighting for market share. They were fighting for survival in an industry that had already left them behind in key ways. The shadow of Tesla loomed over every strategic discussion in Dearborn. Elon Musk's company had redefined what it meant to build a car, turning vehicles into software platforms that happened to have wheels. Tesla's mastery of vertical integration, from lithium mines to over-the-air updates, made traditional automakers look like relics. While Ford was still negotiating with dealership networks and union contracts, Tesla had perfected a direct-to-consumer model that eliminated markups and bureaucracy. And while Ford's engineers tinkered with combustion engines, Tesla was busy shaping the future. Tesla's AI teams were training neural networks to make human drivers obsolete. The gap between Tesla and Ford wasn't just technological, it was cultural. Ford needed to transform into a tech company overnight, forcing it to make decisions that would have been unthinkable a decade earlier. Washington's response to Ford's moves exposed a political system struggling to balance competing priorities. On one side, Trump and his allies framed the offshoring as a betrayal of American workers, threatening tariffs and cancelled government contracts. On the other, the Biden administration quietly accepted globalization as inevitable, offering subsidies for domestic battery plants while largely ignoring Ford's overseas assembly lines. The contradiction was clear. Politicians wanted the jobs and votes that came with traditional manufacturing, but the economics of the EV revolution demanded a break from the past. Caught in the middle were workers in places like Michigan, now facing the harsh truth that their skills might not transfer to the automated, software-driven factories of the future. Ford's real gamble, however, wasn't just about geography. It was about redefining what a car company could be. Behind closed doors, executives greenlit Project T3, a moonshot initiative aimed at building next-generation EVs on fully automated platforms. This wasn't about incremental improvement. It was about total disruption. Factories where robots outnumbered humans 10 to 1. Batteries that charged in minutes and lasted 1,000,000 miles. And a business model that eliminated dealerships altogether. The numbers were staggering. $50 billion in investments, partnerships with BMW on solid-state batteries, and a target price point of $25,000 that would undercut Tesla's cheapest offering. But the risks were just as monumental. If Project T3 failed, Ford would burn through its cash reserves and become a cautionary tale. If it succeeded, it could prove that legacy automakers still had the ability to outmaneuver Silicon Valley. The human cost of this transformation was impossible to ignore. For generations, Ford had provided stable middle-class jobs, the kind that built communities and sustained families. Now, those jobs were being replaced by automation and offshoring, forcing workers to make a painful choice: retrain for a tech-driven economy or watch their livelihoods vanish. Unions fought back, but their influence was waning in an industry where software engineers mattered more than welders. The bitter irony was that Ford's pivot, however ruthless, might be the only way to preserve any American jobs at all. Without radical change, the alternative wasn't a return to the glory days. It was irrelevance. In the end, Ford's story was no longer just about cars. It became a referendum on power in the 21st century. The power of corporations versus governments. The power of data over steel, and the power of adaptation over tradition. The company's defiance signaled a new reality, one where national loyalty took a backseat to agility in global markets, and survival depended more on out-innovating disruptors than out-lobbying regulators. The implications stretched far beyond Detroit. If Ford could pull off this transformation, it would prove that even the oldest giants could still evolve. If it failed, it would serve as a warning to every industry facing existential disruption. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the rules of the game had changed forever, and there was no turning back.